Your computer is not turning on. What can you do? I'm going to give you a quick fix, and then I'm going to give you a detailed fix. So the quick fix, check your PowerPoint. You'd be surprised how many people don't actually turn on their PowerPoints, or someone's turned it off because they're vacuuming, or the PowerPoint plug has fallen out a little bit. Check the other end as well, the back of your computer. At the back of your computer, the cable is connected to your power supply unit, and make sure that's plugged in. Even though you may have pushed it in, sometimes you still need a little bit more of a push. If that's the case, push it in and then it should start again. Now, before you do that, make sure you switch it off at the PowerPoint. And also to check the switch at the back of your power supply, because there is a switch that's got a 0 and a 1. 1 means on, 0 means off, or a stroke. So if you see that, turn it all off, put it to 0, turn off your power supply at the wall, check the cable to make sure it's not frayed, maybe a cat's done something to it, and then plug it all back in. Make sure it's plugged all the way into your power supply unit, turn on from the wall, and then turn on, which is the 1 at the back of your power supply unit, and see if that works. Now, what happens if you've done all that and it still doesn't work? It's very possible that your power supply unit is actually functioning, and when you go and turn on the computer, it's your button that's not working. So there are times where you go and press the on switch and it just doesn't work. When that happens, it's very hard to figure out whether or not your power supply is the one that's broken or the power switch is the one that's broken. So if that's the case, you're going to have to take apart the front end of the computer to have a look at the connections between the motherboard and the power supply switch. If you go ahead and do that, make sure you're checking that the connectors are plugged in properly. Maybe you've installed a hard drive in recent times and you've accidentally loosened one of the cables, or you try to install some RAM and you knock something over. If that's the case, just check to make sure all those cables are connected. The power supply unit feeds the motherboard and everything else with a really fat cable, to put it in layman's terms. Now, this cable goes into a very big slot, usually near the edge of the motherboard. You got to make sure that your cable is seated properly. If you built your computer or someone built your computer and you're not sure if they plugged it in properly, have a look to make sure that all the slots are flat when you've pushed it in. Some of the power supply unit cables come with a section plus another 4-pin one that you have to match to put together to plug in. If you've put them in the wrong side, or you've put them so that it's not seated properly because maybe a little bit of plastic is jutting out from the top, then that could cause power problems and that won't let you switch on the computer at all. To check, make sure that you've got all your power off from the wall. You can leave the plug plugged in but switched off. That way it'll ground it if you have a grounding cable, or you can wear a grounding bracelet. Unplug the clip from the motherboard, and you do so by pressing on it. There's a little bit of a clip there. Press and pull out. You might need to jiggle it, okay? Don't yank it, otherwise you'll break something. Once you've unplugged it, you need to check to make sure that the clips are seated properly together. The newer cables generally don't need to do this, and some of them just come in one big plug. Either way, check this cable to make sure that it's seated completely. If it is, you'll hear a little clip when you push it in. Well, that's it for the advanced version. Now, there is one more way to test whether or not your power supply, and it involves a paper clip and plugging it into the connectors, but I'm not going to recommend that for you. If you've done all that and still doesn't turn on, then you're probably looking at some other components. The likelihood is that it does turn on and your monitor is blank. If that's the case, what do?